Hello, my name is Christopher Jamber. This is my final paper presentation, Talking with Totems. The role of religion in society is ever-changing but ever-present. For Alaska Natives, their religious and spiritual traditions provide continuity with an existence long since altered by contact with the West. These traditions connect individuals to their culture and inform everyday experiences in their durability and, paradoxically, their flexibility. Faith, or the relationship with a divine authority or Great Spirit, is often described imperfectly as a journey. The religious and spiritual journeys of the Tlingit, Yupik, and Sugpiaq, through ongoing contact with the West, reveal deep structural transformations within societies of Alaska Natives over the course of history. Before Christianity, Alaska Native shamanistic traditions serve religious functions intertwined with key areas of their lifestyle, including moral reasoning, healing, and hunting. Khan illustrates the daily experiences and social functions of Tlingit shamans, emphasizing their wide scope of duties as spiritual mediators, curing the sick, ensuring hunt success, and telling the future by means of their fasting, purging, celibacy, and spiritual communion. Tangible evidence strongly supports shamanism as a structure of both social and religious authority. Tlingit totem poles exemplify this social function and shamanic influence in their creation. On the one hand, Russell indicates the temporal, secular interpretation of a totem pole. It could simply denote land ownership. On the other hand, the ornate, deliberate artistry of totems represent the physical manifestation of the oral tradition and is inextricably intertwined with the metaphysical. By connecting totem poles' material appearance with that of their spiritual and cultural significance, Russell specifically identifies a tangible medium through which shamanistic authority was expressed in Tlingit culture. Continuing to explore this evidence, the function and style of pre-contact Yupik masks encoded specific cosmological significance with their culture. Lee explains how shamanic masks of the Yupik depicted benevolent and evil spirits, and how the masks were activated through dance and expected to transport their wearers to the spiritual realms of their forebears. The performance and expression of cosmological moral concepts like good and evil show the scope of shamanic authority as providing a tangible basis for both cultural aesthetics and ethics. Inferring the degree to which religion filled a social niche in Sugpiaq culture contributes to this depiction of shamanic authority. Contemporary Sugpiaq use orthodox objects for the purposes of protection and social identity. DeHaas catalogs these practices, such as carrying incense or icons when leaving the village, and placing crosses in windows in order to ward off evil, and points out their significance is both for their metaphysical power as well as their power to reinforce social connections. This analysis of contemporary Sugpiaq beliefs provides insight into the extent to which these traditions would have once been facilitated by shamans or similar indigenous spiritual authorities. Religion, spirituality, and identity all had ties to shamanic authority's deep structural role in Alaska Native life prior to contact. Although we have a useful set of case studies, we can also imagine the experience of pre-contact Alaska Natives. In a mundane, day-to-day fashion, one can envision the sort of practices, patterns, and moments in which these traditions were used, perhaps the anticipation and effort leading up to a ceremonial dance, and people's curiosity as to its significance. Or introducing new language and concepts to children, learning about a totem pole, mask, or sacred object carried for protection on their first hunt. Using the imagination in this way helps explore the significance of contact with Christianity in the West on both a societal and individual level. And just as the nitty-gritty of Alaska Natives' religious beliefs prior to contact remain largely out of reach, it also seems impossible to reach an exact distillation of the confrontation between Alaska Natives, the West, and Christianity. However, through the structural lens of transfer and transformation of religious authority, the crucial historical and conceptual frameworks can be teased apart from the vast gaps in time and space across which this confrontation occurred. Among Tlingit, Yupik, and Sugpiaq societies, these religious confrontations occurred in concert with a continuum of environmental forces including colonial and economic incentives, external cultural attitudes, and disease. Early exposure to Christianity came via Russian missionaries of Orthodox Christianity. DeHaas describes the conventional cultural attitudes of these missionaries as being so dedicated to their conversion mission that they invested considerable time to learn local languages, ways of life, and everyday realities, going so far as to appoint indigenous clergy members. The early role of orthodoxy acted as an arbitrator against more disruptive outside forces, providing protection from certain abusive practices of the Russian-American Company, which represented Russian colonial and economic interests in Alaska. In the wake of a smallpox epidemic in 1837, Orthodox missionaries complemented their offers of baptism with that of vaccines, earning converts through medicine. Although the generous tone of this analysis may not be reflected in the individual experiences of every Alaska Native, any accommodating attitudes Orthodox missionaries had deserve emphasis in the broader historical context. Doing so helps illustrate the magnitude of the confrontation shift at the advent of American missionaries in Alaska following its purchase in 1867. In contrast to that of the Orthodoxy, American missionaries were often more opportunistic and coercive. Sheldon Jackson, an American Presbyterian leader and missionary, provides a useful historical record of how these attitudes cascaded into a formative environmental force. For example, Danver conveys Jackson's main goal as a missionary to save the native population from the worst effects of the white people as a useful starting point. Taken at his word, Jackson's intentions seemed noble, but lacking a confidence in Alaska Natives' abilities to provide for their own cultural guidance. The relationship between Jackson and his source of funding is another important theme in Danver's article, in which he provides a first-hand testimonial of a converted Tlingit man named Toya At, emphatically professing his new faith and gratitude towards his missionary saviors. Danver reveals an underlying economic and results-based motivation among American missionaries, saying, "This is what the mission boards back home wanted to see. It encouraged more financial support." However, even if one considers Danver's assessment of Toya At's testimonial as more cynical than informative, there are other indicators of economic incentivization at work. For example, his successor, John Brady, came into a conflict regarding the annexation of Tlingit burial grounds for Brady's lumber business, showing how mission work came with a lucrative economic incentive. Additionally, Kahn narrates this historical moment: men of war patrolling the coast, using missionary authorities to attack key aspects of the indigenous culture, and use of the military to enforce school attendance. Drilling deeper still into the pedagogical implications of American mission work, some of the practices of the school were prohibiting the use of native language, presenting a bleak picture of their own parents' way of life, encouragement of intermarriage, and abandonment of moiety exogamy. Indeed, these examples suggest that the means to achieve a premium economic prize at the expense of Alaska Natives' cultural erosion match some of the distinct American colonial patterns of manifest destiny. Anthropologists can discern the degree to which Alaska Native religious syncretisms occurred by conceptually isolating Western missionaries' motivations as economic forces. DeHaas defines syncretism as an adaptation process with the selection, interpretation, and incorporation of culturally specific and meaningful constituents. She discusses syncretism as consisting of conscious and unconscious cultural and cognitive elements, including salient conceptual analogies. In the context of Sugpiaq culture, they identified points of comprehension with conceptual analogies, DeHaas providing a tangible example of ritual masks and Orthodox icons. The masks and icons both function as representative of the spiritual authority of their respective traditions, enabling their meaning to adapt. An intangible example is the use of everyday Sugpiaq life in sermons. That way, Orthodox missionaries could directly relate their beliefs to social structures and patterns Sugpiaq people could understand. Central to the Sugpiaq syncretistic process was the Orthodoxy's hierarchical structure and inclusion of indigenous people as clergy. Shamanistic leaders from Sugpiaq society could have used this policy as a means to maintain religious authority. Additionally, by being familiar with both the indigenous and Orthodox tradition, their presence could have mitigated much of the miscommunication and coercion associated with other areas of religious confrontation. However, this is not meant to characterize this conversion and syncretism of the Sugpiaq as quick, clean, and easy. Rather, it emphasizes the value of individuals' relevant experience and relationship to their community when assuming positions of structural authority. This is an example of how cooperative conversion as a policy enables religious syncretism over time, but it can also work more immediately. Lee details the metamorphosis in Yupik masks specifically as a result of indigenous pastors in the Evangelical Covenant Church of America arriving in the 1930s. Jacob Kinnick prohibited shamanistic ceremonies, and eventually mask-making was all but suppressed. Later, a resurgence of mask-making, this time more sculptural in function and less human in form, occurred when Eka began to allow indigenous pastors, who were themselves mask-makers. The assumption of pastor roles by prior spiritual authority within this community demonstrates the spiritual significance of masks to Yupik people. It also describes ways in which Yupik mask makers, representing their community in a confrontation with an external force, adapted in order to preserve part of their cultural identity while incorporating incompatible beliefs. It narrows the idea of syncretism down to a particular village which adapted to contact with external structures. The intolerant view towards shamanism, taken by early American missionaries, culminated in various ways, but two particular epitomizing events demonstrated the nature of environmental pressure that the Tlingit people were under. Khan describes shamans' humiliation and loss of their community's faith as a result of epidemic, instilling fear, desperation, and trauma into many. In this context, with the arrival of Presbyterian missionaries, the shaman of the village of Huna was asked to kill the resident missionary. However, the shaman assessed the missionary's soul, spared his life, and realized his connection to a higher power, facilitating the conversion of his village. This event suggests that some shamans might have even had lethal authority, which they were obligated to use in times of crisis, such as an epidemic or a threat of coercion. It also puts in a clear context how populations react to such pressure as a way of collectively deciding on an adaptation strategy. Another epitomizing event was the burning of totems in the village of Kake in 1912, as a result of many of the same environmental forces. The Tlingit villagers took it upon themselves to incinerate all of their totems, despite their social importance, as a strategy to adapt to environmental forces of missionaries and disease. An ongoing syncretistic process emerged despite the historical backdrop provided by such destructive forces. Khan identifies many analogies Tlingit elders have drawn between shamans of the past and Christian figures. Shamanic trance states were analogous to apostles speaking in tongues. Moral codes were similar to the Ten Commandments, and their ability to heal was analogous to the power of Christ. Khan argues that the Bible provides Tlingit elders with an image bank from which to construct their concept of shamanism and the interruption of continuity due to environmental forces. However, to a certain degree, there is an argument to be made for the opposite, that the elder stories of the shamans provide us images for the Bible. It also demonstrates the resilience of oral tradition in maintaining social identity. Many people experience life with religion and spirituality at the core. From that core, it is possible to navigate and appreciate changes, no matter how challenging. Religion and spirituality form an important social structure in this way, and the histories of the Tlingit, Sugpiat, and Yupik societies exemplify this. Crucially, in each society, each individual experiences this structure in a different way. Doing the work to generate analogies, understanding responsibilities in society, and remaining aware of historical, ongoing, all too human motivations all support the difficult journey of using religious syncretism to nurture and develop this vital structure in so many lives.